Welcome back to our third session on Spirit at Work with Peter Leong. Hello, Peter. Great to have you back. Looking forward to this next conversation.
Likewise, Mark, we've had quite a bit of fun in the first two podcasts, and we did cover quite a wide span of subject. And I think we are now ready for something else that's also very interesting as we jump into that podcast, Mark. Yeah.
Beautiful. So let me try to summarize a little bit, just to take us to where we're going to focus on today. So we've had this really big picture overview that started all the way back with the Big Bang and the emergence of spirit and spirituality, and and how we have evolved as humanity. And at some point, science started to become much more dominant. Our desire to look at things through the scientific lens, which then created a bit of a divide, I think, between what can be measured, what can be observed, and the whole world of science and the whole world of spirituality. And that has served us really well. So we've seen huge progress for humanity. Societies have progressed. And at the same time, we're coming to, I would call, or maybe you would call, some kind of inflection point where it seems like the challenges that we're facing today, and the complexities that we're facing today, can no longer be solved just with a rational scientific approach. And that it's almost like we're being invited not to put science aside, but to go back to our, may I call, spiritual roots, and the things that, this higher order understanding of things that we have access to, but we have forgotten a little bit how to access it. And that it's something that perhaps we need to rediscover and integrate into the way that we approach the challenges that lay ahead. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one, Peter. I think this is really where a lot of organizations are struggling today, because they're realizing that the way that they're approaching things, that that they may have worked in the past really well and been very effective at enabling their growth and enabling them to achieve their strategic objectives, but somehow those same strategies are not working anymore. And I think what you're going to introduce to us now is something related to this new way
Yes.
of strategic thinking, perhaps.
Yeah, Mark, that's really, really good summary. You've been really listening well, and you're embodying it. And I can't ask for a better summary than you have from podcast 1 to podcast 2, and now more to the nitty-gritty. And you're right. I believe, and I hope I can convey to you and to the listeners, that actually reawakening spirit and spirituality in work or in the workplace, whether individually for oneself or for the team or for the organization, is actually a strategic consideration. And that's how I see it. It's very pivotal. All right. As you see, when you show the image, you will see it's an old business term. When businesses are faced with it's from a competitive framework. When they are faced with challenges, change, and so on, they know leaders and the organizations and they know that they have to make. There is a point where whatever they do forward, that inflection point, will affect whether they grow or they stay stagnant or they decline, right? And this is a natural cycle anyway. You see that in nature, you see that in so many systems, all right? It's always cyclical. It's a wave form. So the key thing here about the strategic part of it is that I like for us to think of reawakening spirit and spirituality not just as a occasional thing. It's a strategic point in our lives or in a community's life, in the team's life, for us to do something about it. In other words, it becomes a strategic choice for change. So I have there, if you look at it from a choosing or a choice point of view, the strategic inflection point for, as far as reawakening spirit is concerned, is to think of it this way: to access the highest knowledge or the highest common factor of all things spirit and spirituality. In other words, we move to a higher, develop our highest faculties, our thinking, our imagination, our visioning, and gain knowledge of the highest things, and if possible, to be able to look at reawakening spirit and spirituality from the big picture, the cosmic nature of spirit, right? Because you got to start right if you want to go and embark on a strategic positioning like this. And it is my belief, and I hope I can convey that reawakening spirit will lead, obviously, to the green line above, because it's based on a higher mode of knowing. So where do we find this? How do we understand this higher mode of knowing? A lot of work has been put together, and maybe the next slide will help us, Mark. It comes from what we call a perennial wisdom, all right? The word perennial means it's staying there for a long time, all right? And it doesn't change. And the perennial wisdom came from before the rational period. In other words, the pre-modern wisdom points, to no matter which part of the world or spiritual people around the world and which beliefs they have, all right, whether it's from the East, the Hindu, the Buddhist, all right, the Chinese Taoism, all right, or more from the middle part was Judaism, all right, because that's the middle part of, the beginning of Christianity. The roots are Judaism, the time of Jesus Christ, actually. And then you have Christianity and you have the Islam faith. But all this, if you ignore, you think of it like a forest, all right? The forest is intact. They all have the same forest, but they are looking at different parts of the forest, but different kinds of trees of knowledge, if you like, but they all show the same forest. See? So these are from modern philosophy, whether it is, psychology, neuroscience, adult developmental science, they all can see that, as you will see in the next slide, the great chain of being. It's all linked together from the highest to the lowest, which means, as you will see in the next slide, the structure of existence is hierarchical in terms of ideas and the way we become. So there is, on the left-hand side, is the old antiquity way of representing. right? You have of course, during that period, the Western influence was through mainly Christianity in the and there you have starting they recognize, like the early pre-modern people from cave days and so on, they realize that there is a higher, the heaven, if you like, call it God, and then you have angels and so on. And right down you have the ordinary earth, which is called matter. And the right hand side is a bit more modern representation of that, which is God and the beingness. All right. So they have the realm of being, which is include life, all right, higher life forms, and so on, and becoming. All looking from the context of matter, becoming plant, life, becoming animals, becoming man, all right, human, and then you have the invisible realm, the spiritual realms. In those days, yeah, very comfortable with using words like demons and angels, and of course, everything points to God. Now, if you look at the Eastern tradition, as you see from the previous slide, whether it's Eastern or not, and whether or not, if we ignore this, they all show the same essential connecting. Ultimately, it points to their God, all right, the highest ultimate truth. So let's then now look at the chain itself from a knowledge point of view. So let's recognize now, all right, because we have a short time, let's start with matter. If you look at matter going to body, evolving into body, life, right? Plant life, first organism, then plant life, and then animal, and then from animal, evolution take higher and higher form into bigger minds. Animals have smaller minds, and the mind evolved thousands, millions of years, right? And then came the human person, and the human person is the highest form in the animal kingdom that has got the ability, using the mind, which is physical matter, all right, and through the neural, we are able to have highest form of intelligence that are able to reflect upon itself, which any animals cannot and does not do. And they are able to also put together a perspective on what the world or the universe looks like. Okay. So, and of course, from a scientific point of view, there are a lot of things that are unexplained and not measurable. And right from Aristotle, Plato time, they all say there's something within the human composition which is non-matter, non-physical. And they come up with the word soul. All right. And later on, we saw that the soul is something that is connected to the human persona, if you like, within the physical structure, the matter of the body, but it has got also a connection outside the body. There is the soul-spirit relationship. Okay, so this is the great chain of being represented in this way. So if you show the next slide, maybe we can look at this again, and this will reinforce what I've just said.
Just 1 second, Peter.
Sure.
Just a few observations that I'd like to share. One is that I find it really interesting to see that man is right in the middle of that scale, you know, between the realm of becoming and the realm of being. It's this
Yep.
really unique position, right? And I think that this simple diagram shows how unique a position we're in. Like we're kind of at that intersection, right? And you know, we always say that magic happens at the intersection of disciplines or intersection of realms. And I think like this kind of shows that we're, you know, we're in a very unique position to create, to actually manifest and create, right? Because it's like sitting in between these different realms. So visually, it just really lands seeing this. The other thing that visually is speaking to me is that demons is in between man and angels, right? In between man and God. And we always say like in our growth to be able to grow and to really um, access higher orders of our personal development, we need to face our demons, right? We always say that, right? We need to deal with our blind spots, with our shadows, with our demons. And here it visually it's telling that story, right? The demons are in between us and these higher realms, and we have to slay the dragon. We have to overcome our demons. So that's something that is, you know, quite interesting also in this diagram.
Yeah.
And what I'm also hearing is that there is this urgency to actually take full advantage of this unique position that we are in as human beings, as man, right? Man, woman that you have here. There's almost like we're not as humanity, we're not fully accessing this whole spectrum of our abilities. And that is the invitation. That's the strategic inflection point that we're in, is
That's right.
to to take that step of growth where we can fully harness that full spectrum of our unique abilities that we have as human beings.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, you speak a lot about vertical development, and I feel like that is the strategic inflection point, right? That is how we're going to be able to have that higher order thinking, right? We need that higher order thinking. The way we get there is through our vertical development,
Yeah.
you know, by slaying the dragons, right? By overcoming our demons, by working on our shadows, by growing in that realm of our being. So I think, you know, you're really connecting the dots of what it is with why it's important at this point in time that we are at an inflection point. And I think that that is a super, super powerful takeaway for me today.
Yeah. Oh, good one, Mark. Good one. And I think, Mark, is very important to also make one concluding point. We've come to this stage where we can see evolution and the involution of spirit before evolution can happen. Now, reawakening spirit and spirituality, as you say, you're right, uh, goes into the inner, and we are at an inflection point, and you're inviting us, all right, through this conversation to use all our intellect, if you like, all our potential, right? Where each one of us are, and each one of us as a human being, as a human person, is unique. It doesn't mean that the whole civilization needs to migrate towards, you know, the spiritual side. And if that happens, then you are taking us back to the pre-modernistic time where there's no science, there's no progress, there's no growth, right? So it's very important to understand that each person, and that's why I hope this series of podcasts will kind of also inform each person where your calling is. We all do not need to become super spiritual. You can be yourself and be as happy as you want. The thing is, if you want to make a choice, then at least you know a strategic choice to really have sustainable growth, to lifelong growth, and able to withstand periods and cycles of decline, then at some point in your life, remember this. There is this spirit and spirituality that you can tap into. All right. So it's not a question about urgency. It's a question about conversations like this to help all of us, to help me, in fact, all right, talk about my story from my own experiences in how I become kind of energized by this thought of spirit and my spiritual self. But that's only for me. Each of us have to find your own spiritual leaning and your own spiritual place in this scale. From matter, to my animal, where do you want to play? And if you're happy, all is good.
Yeah.
It's very important.
That's a great point, Peter. I think everyone's on their own journey.
Yes.
What I do feel is an important shift is that there's less compartmentalization. That everything can live together in a space, right? So somebody, there's people who are going to be approaching things with a very scientific mind, which is perfect, but that they can be in a meeting together with somebody who's approaching it more, with a broader, let's say, spiritual perspective on a certain issue, and that we can listen to each other, and that we can incorporate each other's ideas, and that we can see value in each of these elements rather than, kind of discredit it as, oh, that's just, pure science, or that's woo-woo spirituality. I think that needs to shift, right? The acceptance that each one of us holds a really important piece of the puzzle, and that we can listen and learn from diverse perspectives on a certain issue, right? And that, I think, is I don't want to use the word urgency, but I do feel like that is the imperative that we're being called to embrace, in this moment in time.
Yeah. I think for me, this series of podcasts, the opportunity to share with you, where I'm coming from, it's really an invitation, whichever way you look at it, is to not to neglect the woo people, as you call it, not to neglect them, but open up a bit. All right. And the second thing is that through evolution, there is a order of how we can become more human, more completely human. All right. And recognizing that we are the same as everybody, we come from the same origins, right? And that there is a brotherhood and sisterhood among all of us. When you're open and to the invitation of at least thinking and reflecting on your spiritual nature. And for a lot of people, you are already there. It's just that we don't look at it from this integral, as you say, whole space for each other, because we are in one form or the other spiritual. The highest, most smartest scientists, the atheists, are not saying that they are not spirit. They're just saying that there's no God, but they they know that there is spirit.
Yeah.
Cannot argue against it, but they can say, I do not believe in God, and that doesn't serve me. It doesn't mean that they are demons, if you want to use that word. No, not at all. Therefore, we must see them and they must see us, and we can see each other. We are a true family from a cosmic point of view. And we got a special place in this universe, as you pointed out. We are the connecting, the energetic point, the understanding point of the whole of creation. How wonderful is that, Mark?
Yeah.
How powerful is that?
Yeah.
And we just got to tap into that potentiality we have for our children, for grandchildren, for great-grandchildren, and so on. The humanity that is yet to come, in whatever form they are. We're still, on a journey.
Peter, I think this is a beautiful place to
Yes.
conclude for today. Really, thank you so much. It was wonderful. And I'm looking forward to what we have in store next time.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
sure
do I.
it'll be another important piece of the